Have you started painting door hangers and you're getting really frustrated because your background is feeling like it's not getting good coverage when you're trying to paint a large area, or you feel like your paint just isn't very smooth? We're going to be talking about today how to get smooth finishes on your wood blanks every time. And let me show you my secret weapon. This cruddy old sponge. I know you're probably thinking, why do you still have that? Why is it not thrown away? Actually, I have multiple pieces like this. This was originally a car wash sponge from the Dollar Tree. I'm talking about those odd oblong shapes that you use to squeeze the middle and wash a car with. I have cut it into small chunks and I use it to paint the backgrounds of my door hangers when I'm painting a large area. Another thing that you can use besides this is a large brush. So depending on the size door hanger that you're painting, you're going to want a large brush at least 1 inch wide to get a smooth finish and to cover a large area. Another secret weapon of mine is this little spray bottle. It's a fine mist spray bottle from Hobby Lobby. I found it in the scrapbooking aisle where all of the rubber stamps are. It produces a fine mist, and whenever I am spreading the paint out over a really dry piece of wood, this can help to get that paint to just smooth out. So if you feel like the paint is just sticking to that door hanger and not really spreading out, spritzing it with a mister bottle like this will allow the paint to just go on much more smoothly. If you're using one of these car wash sponges to paint your background, what you're going to want to do is either squirt the paint directly on the area that you're going to be painting and then just smooth it with the sponge, or you might need to have your paint on a paper plate or something separate and dip your sponge in the paint. If you're a beginner, I would probably recommend the second one. Dipping in the paint is going to allow you to control the amount of paint that you're putting on your door hanger, whereas the people who have been doing this for a while know about how much paint they need and they feel more comfortable just squirting it directly on the door hanger and going for it. That's usually the method that I use, but if you're a beginner, probably put it on a paper plate, dip your sponge, and smooth it out from there. If you start feeling like you're not getting very good coverage, dip in the paint again and continue to smooth it out. Once you're done, wash that sponge out because you can use it again. With the sponge method, you're going to get a very even coat. You're not going to have thick places where there's too much paint. It's more likely that you're probably going to have to do up to 3 coats with the sponge. So while this does allow you to get a really nice even coverage, it does require multiple coats. Now, if you're doing it with a paintbrush like these right here, you might be able to get your background or your entire area covered with just 2 coats. You are going to have to focus on doing long, even brush strokes across the area. Doing small, short little strokes is going to cause you to have areas that are thicker than others, and you're going to be able to see those brush strokes a little bit more. If you are doing long passes across it, and you feel like you're still not getting a nice even coverage, that's when your fine mister bottle comes in handy. Give it a little mist, continue to do those long brush strokes, and eventually that paint will even out. And after about 2 coats, maybe 3 at max, you should be able to continue on with the other parts of your door hanger. If you feel like your paint is not spreading well, again, the mister bottle comes in handy. But one thing that I definitely recommend is drying in between each coat. That goes whether you're doing a sponge or a brush. Both of these, you're going to need to dry your project in between each coat. If you don't, what's going to happen is when you go to do your second coat, you're just pushing that first coat out of the way and then it's becoming uneven. So that first coat needs to be completely dry so that the second coat can stick to the first coat. Let's talk about what to do if you have cut out your own door hanger and you're getting ready to paint it and you feel like the surface doesn't feel very smooth. Depending on the kind of wood that you're using, you might need to give it a little bit of a sanding first. I would start with a lower grit sandpaper, like an 80 grit, and using circular motions, give it a nice sanding all across the entire surface. Once you've done that, I would move up to maybe a 120. And then if you feel like it needs to be even smoother, you can move up to a 220. The higher the number, the finer the grit. And so a 220 is going to be barely gritty at all, and it's going to get rid of any of that slight texture that your wood might have. So by doing that before you paint, you're going to start with a much smoother surface. Now, if you're painting on MDF, which is what we sell in our shop, there is no sanding that's going to be required because our pieces come already ready to paint on. Now, let's talk about what to do. If you've already painted your piece and it's just not looking very smooth, not feeling very smooth, you can sand that with a really light grit sandpaper. Again, the 220 is probably what you're going to want to go with, and give it just a really light sanding. If it feels like it just doesn't feel very smooth, or maybe you painted something and had to like patch it and paint over it, and now you've got this spot that looks thicker than the rest, use your sandpaper to sand that down just a little bit and get it nice and smooth before you start painting again. Hopefully after this video, you've got some things that are going to help you troubleshoot the next time you have an uneven background coat, and you will be on your way to having a much smoother finish on your door hanger blank the next time. I hope you've learned something today. If you did, hit that subscribe button so you can learn more about door hanger painting with me in the future. I'll see you next time.